The night shift at Hartford Hospital always had the same smell: alcohol, burnt coffee, and that silent anxiety that clung to the skin when the clock struck 2. For Maya Carter, the sound of the elevator going up was almost a permanent background soundtrack, as if the city breathed through corridors and automatic doors. She liked the predictability of the shift, even if it was the predictability of chaos. That November morning, chaos came in waves. An accident on I-91, a teenager with an overdose rushed in, a woman with pneumonia who wouldn't stop shaking. Maya didn't have time to think about her own body, the exhaustion throbbing behind her eyes. She functioned on autopilot, a kind of discipline that many people mistook for coldness. Her colleagues said she was impossible to shake. She smiled, but inside she knew it wasn't impossibility, it was training. Except that this training didn't come from nursing. When she finally took off her gloves and washed her hands for the last time that night, it was already past 4. She grabbed her coat from the closet, quickly tied her hair up in a bun, and put her ID badge in her bag. Without it, she looked like just another woman walking home alone, crossing a large parking lot, partially lit and filled with shadows between cars. In the real world, this is how bad stories began. A text message from her mother flashed on her cell phone. "Did you get home safely? I didn't like the idea of you leaving in the middle of the night." Maya replied with a "I'm leaving now, Mom," and put the phone in the inside pocket of her coat. The wind was biting, the kind of cold that makes your face burn. The sky was a dark, starless block, and the parking lot lights looked tired, as if they had also been on duty. She walked to her car, a discreet sedan with 2 years of financing left. In the distance, a male laugh broke the silence. She didn't turn her face away immediately. The first impulse, always, was to deny it, to pretend she didn't see, didn't hear, that it wasn't her. But that impulse had been eradicated years ago, in a place she rarely mentioned, and just remembering it made her stomach churn. On the other side of the parking lot, near a dark van, 3 silhouettes. One of them lit a cigarette. The red light shone on his face for a second, revealing a wide, somewhat mocking smile. They didn't look like hospital employees. They didn't have the hurried air of someone fetching a car and disappearing. They had the air of someone who was waiting. Maya took a deep breath, but didn't speed up. Speeding up, you confirm. Speeding up, you give them control. She kept a steady pace, as if it were just another straight walk. "Hey nurse," the voice came out clear, laden with sarcasm. "It's too late to be walking around alone, isn't it?" Maya continued. Her fingers closed naturally round the keys in her pocket, not as an improvised weapon, not as a threat, but as an anchor, something to keep her mind in the present. "What's wrong? Aren't you going to talk to us?" Another laugh, closer. One of them started walking towards her. At that point, her body was already taking into account distance, light, escape routes, the presence of cameras, and the possibility of someone being in the building. She saw the security booth in the distance. The light was off. She saw a car parked with its engine running about 50 meters away, probably someone waiting for their shift to end. She saw the hospital's side emergency door, but it was the type that locks when closed. She saw her own car and calculated, if they arrived before her, the driver's side door would become a corner. "Are you scared?" the first one asked, now about 15 meters away. "No need to be. We just want to talk." She heard the shuffling of footsteps. There weren't 3 anymore. The 4th was hidden, emerging from the side, trying to cut through. Maya felt the same thing she felt in the hospital when someone arrived with hidden bleeding. The danger wasn't what you saw. It was what you hadn't yet seen. She stopped, not because I was cornered, but because I wanted to choose the moment when the story changed. She turned slowly. Her face showed no panic, but neither did it show defiance. It was a neutral expression, as if she were too tired to care. This confused certain types of predators because they depended on a clear reaction. They depended on you begging, on you running, on you trembling. "Good evening," she said. Her voice came out steady, without trembling. The man in front, the one with the cigarette, seemed surprised. He was in his early 20s, wearing a black jacket and a low-top cap. The others spread out, trying to surround him. Maya noticed their hands. One hand was in a pocket, as if holding something. Another hand was loose, with restless fingers. One of them was chewing gum angrily. "You're brave," said the one with the cap. or stupid. I'm coming back from work, Maya replied. I don't want any trouble, a problem. He laughed. You think I'm causing a problem? I'm being polite, so be polite from afar. A pause. The wind blew, and the cigarette drew an arc of embers. Maya felt her heart beating. Yes, but her heart wasn't in control. It was just an engine. Her mind was already working at a different frequency. The man took 2 steps. What's your name? It doesn't matter. It does matter. He pointed to the name tag that was no longer on his chest. Where's your little name? Did you hide it? Who do you think you are? Maya didn't respond. If you feed their egos, you become part of their game. If you engage in conversation, you give them a place in your evening. The tallest one, on the left, walked around, approaching her car. Nice car, he said, running his hand over the hood as if he owned it. We can go for a ride. No, she said, simply. The man in the cap stared at her, his eyes half closed. His arrogance needed validation. It needed fear, and she wasn't offering it. What are you going to do? Call the police. He gestured mockingly with his hand. Call them. Let's see if they get there quickly. Maya felt the air grow even colder. The word police there wasn't a promise. It was a memory. She had already seen what happened when a woman called and heard, "Are you in a safe place?" She had already seen time drag on too long. I just want to leave, she repeated. The man took another step, now close enough for her to smell cigarettes and cheap deodorant. He tilted his face, invading her space, testing boundaries. Maya didn't back away, but she didn't advance either. It was an invisible line. I like your style, he said softly. You think you're strong? Maya tilted her head a millimeter, as if analyzing something. I don't think so. I know what I can handle. The sentence slipped out before she could stop it. It was a small mistake, but it was a mistake nonetheless. She saw the gleam in his eyes change. Now he wanted to prove her wrong. The man raised his hand, as if to touch her face. Maya didn't move. Only when his hand crossed the last inch of distance did her body react with quiet precision. She turned her face away, gripped his wrist firmly enough to stop the gesture, and with a short movement, released it. Without twisting, without breaking, without a spectacle. Just a no. The group fell silent for a second. The one with the cap looked at his own wrist, offended. His pride had been hurt, and that was dangerous. Ah, so you wanted to play, he said, his voice harsher. Maya saw the fourth man position himself behind her. She saw the tallest one approach the side of the car. She saw the one with the pocket take his hand out, revealing something that reflected light. It wasn't a firearm, but it had metal. Maybe a tire iron, maybe a short blade, maybe just a threat. It didn't matter. What mattered was the intention. The world became clear, as if someone had adjusted the focus. Maya felt the weight of an entire past pressing down on the present, and knew, with icy clarity, that this night wasn't just about her leaving the parking lot. It was about what she did when someone tried to decide she had no choice. She stepped aside, creating space. The one with the cap smiled, thinking she was backing away. And then, from inside the hospital, a door opened. A man came out, in maintenance uniform, with a tool cart. He looked at the group, hesitated, and his hesitation was like a lit match in a gas-filled room. The four turned to him for a second. Maya took advantage of that second. She didn't run straight toward the car. She didn't panic. She did what she had been trained to do, create a small advantage at the right moment. Sir, she called out loudly, in a voice that didn't seem to be her own. Can you help me? They're preventing me from leaving. The man froze. The four of them got angry, because now there was a witness. And a witness changes the game. Go away, old man. The tallest one shouted. The employee took a step back, astonished. And Maya saw, in that same instant, the decision forming on the men's faces. Either they would scatter or they would climb. And a cornered predator sometimes climbs just to avoid losing control. The one with the cap gave a bitter smile. Okay, let's do this, nurse. You'll leave the bag there, and then you'll go. Without screaming, Maya felt her hand tighten even more around the keys. Inside her bag were her wallet, cell phone, ID, and a small envelope with documents she should never carry with her. A bad habit, a distraction, a risk. I'm not leaving anything behind, she said. The one with the cap tilted his head, as if assessing a stubborn animal. "So you've made your choice." He gave a signal with his chin, and the others moved at the same time. Maya knew that the initial impact wouldn't be physical. It would be psychological. The real attack began when they tried to break her composure. She adjusted her weight, kept her gaze fixed on the cap, and waited for the moment when one of them would make the mistake of thinking she was just a woman alone in the cold. The first hand came from behind, trying to grab her coat. The touch came like a sharp tug on the fabric of her jacket, but Maya had already felt the shift in air behind her a moment before. It wasn't magic, nor a cinematic sixth sense. It was practice and habit, paying attention to the silence, the micro-variations, the way footsteps change when someone decides to touch her. She twisted her torso, escaping the grip without trying to fight the force. The man behind her lost his balance for half a second, and that half second was everything. Maya shifted to the side, forcing the four of them to readjust their formation. Most people don't understand this. In situations like this, you don't win a fight. You change the geometry. "She's crazy," someone shouted. The man in the baseball cap stepped forward, hand open, trying to grab her arm. Maya didn't respond with a strike. She responded with distance. She took a quick step, keeping the car as a partial obstacle. At the same time, her voice rose a tone, designed to reach the cameras and the building. "I'm going to call the police right now." It was true, and it was strategy. A credible threat changes the cost-benefit ratio. They might have wanted to overpower a woman, but few wanted a report, sirens, photos. The man with something metallic in his hand approached from the side of the hood, trying to cut off her path to the driver's side door. He raised the object, which she could now see more clearly, a small knife, probably a common one, but held up as a form of intimidation. "Shut up," he said. "Shut up," or Maya raised her hands, palms open. To an observer from afar, it would seem like surrender, but it was something else entirely. It was control. She wanted him to believe he had the upper hand, because that would cause him to take a reckless step. "I don't want anyone to get hurt," she said, and inside she felt the bitter irony of that phrase. In the hospital, she said that to desperate families. Now she was saying it to strangers who thought the world was a lawless parking lot. The maintenance worker, the man in uniform, had stepped back, his hands trembling as he clutched his cell phone. He looked at Maya guiltily, as if he knew he should have done more, but fear held him to the ground. "Are you calling?" Maya asked loudly, without taking her eyes off the group. "Call now, please." Aye, he stammered. "League." The one in the cap saw the cell phone and cursed. "Son of a..." He took a step toward the employee, as if to intimidate him. That was the first crack in their chest. They shared the attention. Maya took advantage of the gap to move to the back of the car, seeking the passenger side where the lighting was brighter, and the lamppost camera seemed to have a better shot. She had the car key in her hand, but hadn't yet activated the alarm. An alarm, sometimes, is like shouting. It draws attention, but it also increases chaos, and in chaos, things go wrong. "Do you think this will save you?" the taller one said, approaching. His eyes were empty, as if he had done this before. "Do you think anyone here will care?" Maya felt anger rising, and anger was dangerous, because it made her heart want to rule. She swallowed it. In place of the anger, she put a short, dry phrase. "I have a family. I'm going home." The man with the cap looked back at her, now more irritated. "You're going home after you drop off your bag. It's simple." She shook her head no. The word came out like a stone. There was no negotiation. There were no smiles, only limits. The man with the knife took a quicker step, and then Maya realized the truth. They weren't just interested in robbery. The purse was a pretext. Their real intention was something else, a kind of domination, power for power's sake. This made everything more unpredictable. "Okay," the one with the cap said, as if making a decision. "Hold her." Two hands came. One tried to grab her shoulder, the other her forearm. Maya didn't react with bravery, nor with acrobatics. She reacted efficiently. She twisted her body, freeing herself from the initial contact, and pushed the car with her palm, creating space for someone's fingers to slip through. A short movement, no spectacle. The taller one, frustrated, tried to grab her from behind again, and this time he put his mouth close to her ear. "Do that again and I'll throw you to the ground," he whispered. Maya felt his breath, and it took her to an ancient place. A place she thought she had buried, a memory from years ago in the Middle East, when she was a civilian interpreter on a base, and a drunken man thought he could test what she could take. It was around that time that someone, a quiet instructor with stony eyes, told her, "You don't have to be anyone's punching bag. Learn to stay alive." It wasn't glamorous. It was about survival. She turned her face, staring at the taller man with an almost offensive calm. "Lean on me again and I'll make you regret it." He laughed. Look at her. And that's where his mistake came in. He thought that repentance depended on brute force. He got too close, put his weight on the wrong foot, and tried to restrain her body with his own. Maya didn't fight. She created an escape route. She tucked her elbow in to open up space and twisted outward. The movement was quick, and the taller man slammed his shoulder against the car, surprised. There was no pretty impact, just a metallic thud and a curse. At that moment, the man in the cap became more aggressive. He made a short gesture, and the man with the knife moved closer, raising his arm. The metal gleamed under the lamp. Maya felt time slow down. Not like in a movie, like a decision. She had three choices: run and leave the bag behind, run with the bag and be caught, or interrupt the attack long enough to run. She chose the third, not out of pride, but out of calculation. When the man with the knife stepped forward, she didn't look at the blade. She looked at his shoulder and waist. Blades deceive, bodies don't. She moved out of line, pushed her arm away from her torso, and then gave him a sharp shove in the chest, just enough to break his intention and make him take a step back. He didn't fall. He got angry. "She's hitting me," he yelled, as if it were absurd for a victim to react. The maintenance worker finally seemed to wake up. I'm calling. His voice came out loud and desperate. He already had the phone to his ear. The guy with the cap cursed again. "Get out of here." And as if the universe wanted to prove that the city was made of seconds that decide destinies, a distant siren appeared. Not close, not yet, but the sound was enough to stir the courage of those who are only brave when they think no one will respond. The four hesitated, and the hesitation was a crack. Maya took the opportunity to press the car alarm button. The shrill sound cut through the early morning hours, an ugly and repetitive thing. The lights flickered. The parking lot came alive. "Damn it!" The tallest one shouted, covering one ear. The one in the cap took a step back, his eyes narrowing. And then he did something Maya didn't expect. He smiled. "You think this is over?" he said, as if promising something. "I know where you work. I know where to find you." The phrase was a seed of fear, a threat to the future, an attempt to poison the nights to come. Maya felt a chill, and this time it wasn't from the cold. Because, yes, he knew where she worked. He could come back. He could wait another day, another time, another place without cameras. She got into the car on the passenger side, quickly crossed to the driver's seat, and locked the doors. Her hands trembled only now, as the immediate danger receded and her body exacted the price of lucidity. She started the engine, and the sound of the engine was almost a cry of relief. Outside, the four took a few more steps back, but they didn't leave. They stood there, watching, as if marking their territory. Maya reversed quickly, swerving to avoid an abandoned cart. As she passed the maintenance worker, she saw his pale face, wide eyes, and he still had the phone to his ear, talking to someone. She pulled out of the parking lot with the alarm still blaring, its headlights cutting through the dark asphalt. Only when she turned the corner and entered the avenue did the sound seem to fade away. But the threat did not remain. In the rearview mirror, she saw something that made her stomach sink. The dark van that had been stopped before was now moving. It was pulling away slowly, and for a second, the van's headlights aligned with hers, like eyes adjusting in the dim light. Maya sped up. It wasn't paranoia. It was instinct, and her instinct told her something simple. They hadn't given up. They were just starting. The avenue was almost empty. The kind of emptiness that gives the impression that the city is sleeping, but in reality is just hiding. Maya kept both hands on the steering wheel, her gaze alternating between the road and the rearview mirror. The van was there, at a calculated distance, neither too close to seem like an obvious chase, nor too far to lose. It was the kind of chase that doesn't want to be noticed, but wants to be felt. She breathed in through her nose and exhaled through her mouth. As she had learned in a course that wasn't part of the nursing curriculum, the first rule was simple: don't let panic turn into driving. The second, don't go home. Her apartment was 15 minutes away, in an old building with a narrow hallway and a slow elevator. A terrible place to take any kind of shadow with you. She changed lanes without apparent hurry and entered a side street that led to a brighter area with more cameras. The neighborhood still had some open bars, a 24-hour gas station, and a diner that never closed. People and light were allies. The van came in too. Okay, Maya murmured, more to herself than anything else. So that's it. She picked up her cell phone and dialed 911 using the speakerphone, keeping control of the car. The ringtone rang once, then twice, and an operator answered with that voice trained to sound calm even when the world is on fire. 911. What's the emergency? I'm being followed, Maya said, choosing her words carefully. I left the Hartford General parking lot. 4 men approached me. Now there's a dark van following me. I'm not going home. The attendant asked for location directions and a description. Maya responded without going into details about what had happened with the physical contact. She knew that when you talk too much, you become a confusing story. When you say what's essential, you become a priority. Can you see the license plate? The attendant asked. Maya glanced in the rearview mirror. The van was behind a car, but she could see part of the front when it changed lanes. She made a turn, slowing down slightly, letting the van get closer without seeming provocative. The license plate appeared for a second, but the light reflected. She only caught 2 numbers, maybe 3. Not complete, she said. But it's a dark van, like a Ford or Dodge, without a logo, with yellowish headlights. Are you safe now? The question was almost comical. Security was a fragile concept when someone decides you're not entitled to it. I'm driving. I need a patrol car, Maya replied. I'm going to the gas station on Farmington Avenue, near the diner. Please stay on the line, the operator said. A unit is on its way. Maya turned onto Farmington. The gas station appeared like an oasis of fluorescent light. 2 cars were filling up. A truck driver was inside the store, and a young man was cleaning a windshield near the pumps. Maya parked near the entrance on purpose, where the cameras would be better and where there would be people to see. The van drove straight past, slowly, as if it were just passing by. But it didn't continue. It turned the corner and stopped on the other side of the street, its headlights off. It was like an animal lying in the grass, pretending not to notice. Maya stayed inside the car, doors locked. The attendant was still on speakerphone. She stopped on the other side, Maya said. They're waiting. A unit is on its way, the attendant repeated, and Maya heard a slight delay, as if the city itself had difficulty delivering on its promises. She looked around the gas station and realized something that tightened her chest. It was too early, and the station had no security. Only ordinary people. And ordinary people, when they see danger, often turn a blind eye. Not out of malice, for survival. Maya didn't want anyone to become a victim because of her. A police car finally appeared, lights off, approaching cautiously. 1 patrol car, just 1. Maya felt a mixture of relief and frustration. 1 patrol car for a situation where she wasn't sure if there were 4, 6, or more. But it was all there was. 2 police officers got out of the car. A man and a woman, both with alert postures, hands near their seatbelts. The female officer approached Maya's car and gestured for her to lower the window just a little. Did you call? She asked. Maya nodded. Double quotes, yes. They approached me in the hospital parking lot. 4 of them. Now that van is over there. The policewoman looked at the van on the other side and said something into the radio. The male policeman walked slowly toward the other side of the street, as if he didn't want to give anyone a reason to flee. The van, as if it had a life of its own, turned on its headlights and drove off. Hey! The policeman shouted, running back. The patrol car turned on its lights and sped off. Maya stood there, holding her breath, watching the chase turn the corner and disappear. Silence returned, but now it was a heavy silence, full of questions. The policewoman stayed with her. Are you okay? Are you hurt? Maya hesitated, not because she didn't want help, but because she knew that hurt was only part of the story. The rest was fear, and fear doesn't show up on an X-ray. "I'm fine," she said, just as scared. The policewoman looked her straight in the eyes, and for a second, her professional demeanor seemed to give way to humanity. "You did the right thing by not going home." Maya let out a breath she didn't even know she was holding. "They said they know where I work. You're going to file a police report," the officer stated, "and I want as many details as you can remember." On the way to the police station, Maya felt her body begin to tremble for real. The adrenaline finally found room to escape. She tried to focus on what she saw out the window: closed shops, flashing traffic lights, graffiti on a wall. Everything seemed too normal for someone who had almost become a statistic. At the police station, the atmosphere was cold and functional. An older officer took her statement, and Maya described the faces, the clothes, the van. When she got to the part about being touched, she chose her words carefully. "They tried to hold me. They tried to stop me from leaving." She didn't want her account to become a moral judgment about how she reacted, because she had reacted, and her reaction had been different, too controlled, too precise, as if she knew things that an ordinary nurse wouldn't know. The older police officer looked up from his paper. "Do you have training?" he asked, with a curiosity that bordered on suspicion. Maya felt her throat go dry. That question always came up at some point, not out of malice, but because the world likes to put people in boxes. Nurses don't detach themselves from men in a parking lot. Nurses don't think about cameras and geometry. "I took some courses," she replied, without lying and without telling the whole truth. "Courses where?" he insisted. Maya hesitated for a second longer than she should have. "And in a small room, that becomes information." "Through an old program," she said. "Volunteer work. Nothing special." The police officer took notes, but his expression changed, as if he were holding something back. When she left the police station, it was already dawn. The sky had a pale band, and the city seemed to be waking up pretending nothing had happened. Maya got into the car and drove home, now with a partial escort, a police car following at a distance for a few blocks. She arrived at the building, went upstairs, went inside, locked everything. Only then did she sit on the kitchen floor, leaning against the cupboard, and let her body tremble shamelessly. The tears came silently. She wasn't just crying about what almost happened. She was crying about what had happened inside her, that old activation, that part of her she swore she didn't need anymore. The cell phone vibrated. Message from an unknown number. "I liked your alarm." It was creative. Maya froze. The blood seemed to drain away from her face. Another message followed immediately. "See you at your work." Or before. She stared at the screen as if it were poison. They had her number, and that meant something she didn't want to accept. That approach in the parking lot wasn't random. Someone had observed it. Someone had chosen it. And if someone chooses, someone plans. Morning entered through the kitchen window like a polite intruder. The light was dim, gray, and didn't match what Maya felt inside. Her cell phone was still in her hand, and the two messages seemed to grow on the screen, as if they were more than just letters. It wasn't just a threat. It was proof. Proof that violence had crossed the front door and sat inside her house without asking permission. Maya took a deep breath and did what nurses do when something bleeds: assessed, controlled, and decided. First, she took screenshots of the messages. Then, she called the police station back and asked for the email address to send the evidence. The operator on the other end seemed sleepy, but she wrote it down. Maya sent it and then hung up. Not out of cowardice, but because she needed silence to think. She went to the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. Swollen eyes, a faint mark on her wrist where someone had squeezed. Nothing that drew attention. Nothing that confirmed the horror. Sometimes the worst of threats is this: the body remains whole, but the mind is shattered. In the shower, the hot water didn't bring comfort. It only brought back memories. She saw, like a flash, a concrete corridor in a military base years ago. She saw an instructor in a low voice saying, "You're not going to fight to win. You're going to fight to get out." She saw her own name on a name tag that wasn't from a hospital, a name she no longer uses anywhere. She turned off the shower and forced herself to go back to 2026, to Connecticut, to her kitchen with piled-up dishes and an electricity bill on the table. The apartment's landline rang. She had almost forgotten it existed. She answered cautiously. "Miss Carter?" A firm, non-urgent, but authoritative male voice. "Try. This is Detective Ronan Hayes, Hartford Police Department. I've seen the material you sent." Maya felt a stiffened pain in her spine, and I need you to come talk to me in person. Today. As soon as possible. I already gave my statement yesterday. I know, but now we have a bigger problem. That number that messaged you. It's not your average disposable number. And the way they approached you, it seems targeted. The word targeted made her throat go dry. "Do you think it was someone specific?" "I think you weren't the first," Hayes said. "And maybe you won't be the last. Can you come?" Maya looked around the kitchen as if searching for an answer in the refrigerator. "I work tonight. Then come this morning. We'll talk, and I'll advise you on immediate steps to take." Immediate measures, she repeated, and hated the feeling of needing guidance. As if she had lost her autonomy. But part of her also felt relief, because the fear was too heavy to carry alone. "I'll be there in 40 minutes, she said. At the precinct, Hayes didn't look like the typical TV detective. He had dark circles under his eyes, messy hair, and a tired look, like someone who'd seen too much. But his eyes were sharp, and that was what mattered. He led Maya into a smaller room, devoid of the coldness of the main counter. There was a board with city maps on the wall, and a table with papers and a computer. Hayes pointed to a chair and sat down on the other side. "First of all, I want you to know that I believe in you," he said. "We have cameras in the parking lot. You can't see everything, but you can see quite a bit." Maya felt a small, almost ridiculous relief. Being believed was a basic need that, for some reason, always seemed like a luxury when a woman spoke of threats. Hayes turned the monitor toward her. The image was grainy, but it showed the silhouettes, the encirclement, the alarm. And it showed something Maya hadn't noticed that night. A fifth man, standing further away, near a column, observing without participating. He didn't approach. He didn't speak. He just stood there, as if ensuring the plan was working. Maya felt her stomach sink. "I didn't see him." "You didn't have to see it," Hayes replied. "He wasn't there to threaten. He was there to watch. This is worse." "Yes," Hayes breathed, resting his elbows on the table. "Now let's talk about the messages. The number appears linked to a prepaid plan, but there was batch activation. This happens when someone buys multiple SIM cards at once. It's common in small organized crime groups, local gangs, people who want to make tracking difficult." Maya swallowed hard. "Local gang. Did you recognize any of them?" Maya closed her eyes for a second and pulled the images from her memory. The one with the cap had a small scar on his left eyebrow. The taller one had a tattoo on his neck, something like a symbol. I couldn't see it properly. Hayes took note. "Okay, that helps. He did something else then." He placed a sheet of paper in front of her, with a name written at the top, Maya Carter. "Your name has been Maya Carter for how long?" he asked, without aggression, as if asking a routine question. Maya froze. The air seemed to grow heavier. She knew this was going to happen eventually. Someone would find an inconsistency, a trace from the past, a discrepancy in the record. Always, she lied, and the lie came out almost automatically. Hayes didn't accuse anyone. He simply turned the computer screen over and showed an old record from many years before. The name was different, and there was a note, "Legal change for security reasons." Maya felt her face burning. "Why are you looking at that?" "Because we check on the victim when there's evidence of targeted harassment," he replied. "And because when I saw the way you moved on camera, I suspected you weren't just a scared nurse." Maya gripped the edge of the chair tightly. "That has nothing to do with it." Hayes tilted his head patiently. "Yes, if someone chose you, it wasn't by chance. The question is, what in your past would make someone choose you?" She remained silent, a silence filled with pride and fear. Pride because she had survived what she had lived through, fear because it could happen again. Hayes continued, without pressing too hard. "I don't need operational details. I don't want to know anything that would put you at legal risk or that is confidential. I just need to understand the context. Did you work with the government? With the military? Did you witness anything? Were you part of any process that angered someone?" Maya looked at her hands. Her nails were short and clean, the hands of someone who works, Hands that morning had decided not to be broken. I was an interpreter, she said finally. Her voice was low. Civilian. Contracted. I worked at bases outside the country for a while. Then I came back and changed my life. Changed my name. Hayes nodded slowly, as if a piece had fallen into place. And this training? Maya took a deep breath. I participated in a preparedness program for civilians working in high-risk areas. It was survival, personal safety, nothing heroic. She chose each word as carefully as someone crossing a minefield. Hayes didn't smile, didn't make a joke. He just wrote it down. That's enough. Thank you for your trust. I didn't trust you, Maya retorted, and the honesty came with a bitter taste. I just don't want to die because of my past. Hayes paused briefly. I understand. He stood up and went to a cabinet, took out a folder. We are investigating a series of approaches near hospitals and commercial parking lots. Women alone during shift changes. Into cases, there was more serious aggression. In one, the victim did not want to testify. In the other, the victim disappeared for a few hours. She reappeared later, traumatized, and was unable to identify the men. Maya felt her stomach churn. So they've already done it. Yes. And the fact that you reacted and escaped, it may have affected them. These kinds of people hate to lose. The word lose seemed too small. What they had lost was control. And control was a drug. Hayes placed another sheet on the table. A list of recommendations. Bury your roots. Don't walk alone in isolated areas. Notify hospital security. Record all messages. Seek protection orders if possible. It was all sensible and at the same time unfair, because each recommendation was a way of saying, change your life so you don't get attacked. Maya stared at the list. And what are you going to do? We're going to increase patrols near the hospital and try to locate that van, Hayes said. And I want you to talk to hospital security today. I can call them too, but I need your help with one more thing. What thing? Hayes hesitated for a second. I want you to tell me if there's anyone who might be monitoring you online. Social media, leaked address, anything. Maya gave a short, humorless laugh. I'm practically invisible online. Even so, sometimes it's not you who exposes yourself. It's someone close to you, or old information that leaked. Maya thought of her mother, neighborhood groups, and colleagues who posted photos of themselves on duty with their location tagged. She thought of a friend who always said, tag yourself here, friend. Without realizing the risk, she raised her head. I'll review everything. And one more thing, Hayes said, with an odd caution. I saw in your old records a reference to a contact, someone who signed off on the name change for security reasons. A supervisor, a member of the military. Do you still have contact with that person? Maya felt her throat tighten. There was a name she tried not to think about. A name that represented her entire past. A man who had been the bridge between her life before and the life she tried to build afterward. A man who taught her, with coldness and humanity at the same time, how not to die when the world decides to hunt you down. No, she lied again, but this time the lie trembled. Hayes realized, if you have it, it could be useful. Not for taking justice into your own hands, for protection. To understand if this is connected to something bigger. Maya stood up, feeling heavy. I don't want to bring any more people into this. Hayes nodded. I respect that, but you need to understand, when someone messages you like that, it's escalating, and I don't want to see you become a closed case. Maya left the police station with the folded list in her pocket and a heavy heart. On the way to her car, the cold seemed more aggressive, as if the city had teeth. She got into the car and left the engine off for a minute. She picked up her cell phone, turned it on again, and opened her contact list. She scrolled through names, numbers, old messages. Her hand stopped on a contact she never deleted, just left buried in the back, DH. She didn't want to press the button. She didn't want to open that door. But the message she received at home echoed in her mind like a clock. We'll see each other at your work, or before. Maya pressed the contact, stared at the call button, and stood there, motionless, at war with herself. And then the phone vibrated again, as if the world wouldn't let her choose calmly. New message, different number, tonight. Same time as your shift. Don't change the route. We're keeping an eye on it. Maya felt her blood run cold. Because now it wasn't just a threat, it was surveillance. Maya spent the rest of the morning as if she had a fever, but without one. Her body functioned, but her mind wouldn't stop. She started with the basics, turned off her phone's location services, reviewed app permissions, removed old photos of her ID badge that were still saved out of habit, and deleted anything that revealed her routine. Then she went to the social media accounts she hardly ever used and closed everything, even those that were already closed. Even so, the feeling persisted when someone says we're watching. It's not always over the phone. Sometimes it's across the street. She called her mother and made up an excuse about a busy week and lots of shifts, saying she wouldn't be having lunch together on Sunday. Her mother complained, worried, and Maya realized how fear changes the way we love. Every simple question becomes a risk, every habit becomes a trace. In the early afternoon, she went to the hospital early, not to work, but to talk to security, as Hayes had suggested. The head of security, a burly man named Mark Delaney, received Maya in a room with monitors and a crackling radio. He seemed more tired than threatened, as if he had heard this kind of story before and, at the same time, didn't want it to be repeated. "You're the night shift nurse, right?" Mark asked, flipping through a printed report. I saw the video of the parking lot. I'm sorry. We should have had a security guard patrolling there, but you know how it is. Budget cuts." Maya resisted the urge to reply that the budget doesn't go into the ambulance when something goes wrong. Instead, she kept her voice steady. "I received messages afterward. They have my number. They said they'll see me here tonight." Mark frowned and straightened up. "This changes things." She showed him the screenshots. He looked at them, cursed under his breath, picked up the radio, and quickly gave orders to reinforce the patrol. Then he turned to her with a more practical demeanor. "Today you won't be crossing the parking lot alone. You'll enter and exit through the staff entrance, near the loading dock, and I'll have someone escort you to your car. If you're up for it, you can park in the covered area, near the new cameras." "I'm in," Maya said without hesitation. Mark paused. "Do you have someone to pick you up?" "No." "Boyfriend? Friend?" "No." Mark nodded, as if that explained the world. "Okay. So we become that someone today." She thanked them and left, with the strange feeling of depending on strangers to do what should be simple: get to and from work. Before leaving, she went to the locker room and picked up her shift uniform. The fabric smelled of hospital, that clean, cruel odor, and she thought that, if life were fair, a nurse's uniform would be armor. But the world doesn't respect symbols. On her way home, she did exactly what a part of her hated. She looked at all the cars coming behind her, analyzed who was stopped at the traffic lights, noticed shadows reflected in shop windows. She didn't want to live like this, but living like this was better than not living at all. At home, she grabbed a small backpack and packed things that seemed excessive to an ordinary person, but obvious to her: an extra charger, a small flashlight, a water bottle, a simple change of clothes, documents and envelopes, folded cash. She hated her own list. The list tasted of the past. At 6 o'clock in the afternoon, the sky was already dark. She prepared to leave as one prepares for a difficult exam. No music, no distractions, a clear mind. Before closing the door, she paused for a second with her hand on the doorknob, listening. Nothing. Only the distant sound of a neighbor and a dog barking. In the car, she didn't take her usual route. She took busier streets, past a busy gas station, and filled the tank almost completely. And then, near the hospital, she saw something that made her heart clench: a dark van parked near a convenience store, on the same block as the access road. She couldn't be sure it was the same one, but the shape, the way it waited, the place it chose, it was all too familiar. Maya didn't turn her head. She kept going, entered the covered parking lot, and parked near the cameras. A security guard was already there, leaning against a column, looking at his phone as if it were nothing. When he saw Maya, he put his phone away and made a discreet gesture. "Are you Mite?" he asked. I'm Tyler. Mark asked me to stay here." Maya nodded. "Thank you." Tyler looked young, but he had the bearing of an ex-military man, or at least someone who had learned not to show fear. That helped more than any comforting words. She entered the hospital, and the shift began like any other, patient complaining of pain, Doctor ordering tests. Desperate family wanting quick answers for a life that doesn't move at the pace of forms. Maya clung to her work like someone clinging to a rope in the middle of a river. Each task was a step, each step taking her a little further from the parking lot. But the world doesn't let us forget so easily. Around midnight, while I was updating a patient's chart on the computer, a colleague approached. It was Tasha, a nursing technician, short and energetic, with an easy smile that seemed to withstand any shift. "Hey," Tasha said, lowering her voice. "There's a guy asking for you at reception." Maya felt her stomach sink. "What do you mean?" He asked Maya Carter. I said I can't confirm names. He insisted. "He's wearing a cap." I thought it was strange. The word cap sent shivers down her spine. Maya closed the chart without saving it, stood up, and went to the window overlooking the lobby, but from an angle that wouldn't reveal her presence. She saw the man from afar, cap down, posture to relaxed, as if he were in a bar. He was talking to the receptionist and smiling. The smile was the same one from the parking lot. The scar on his left eyebrow became visible when he turned his head. It was him. He wasn't hiding. He was inside the hospital. Maya felt a cold rage rise within her. This was her territory, the place where she saved people. And he had walked through those doors as if he could buy the right to scare her. She stepped back, pulled out her cell phone, and called Detective Hayes. The call went to voicemail. She tried again, nothing. She ran to the security room. Mark wasn't there, but the security guards were monitoring the cameras. Maya went in without knocking. "There's a man in the lobby. The one from the video. The one with the cap. He's asking for me." The two straightened up. One of them, the older one, picked up the radio. "Mark, we have a situation in the lobby. Suspect identified." The other man pulled the lobby camera onto the screen. The man in the cap was there, calm, talking as if he were an ordinary visitor. Next to him, someone passed by pushing a wheelchair. He politely made way. That was what hurt, the ease with which predators disguise themselves as normal people. Mark appeared into minutes, panting, with his jacket open. He looked at the camera and his face hardened. "Okay," he said. "You stay here. Don't leave. Tyler, go with Jeff. Standard approach. If he messes around, we'll call the police." Maya stayed. She wanted to go along, but she knew that would only fuel the game. They wanted a reaction. They wanted to see her break down. Through the monitor, he saw Tyler and another security guard approach the man. They talked for a few seconds. The man in the cap raised his hands, as if to say calm down. He even seemed offended. Then he smiled, pointed to his own chest, as if to say, "I'm just a guy." And then, before leaving, he looked directly at the camera. Maya felt as if he was looking directly at her. He turned and left, escorted to the door. Outside, he stopped, took his cell phone out of his pocket, and typed something. Maya's phone vibrated at that very moment. "Message, you look beautiful when you're scared." She clenched her jaw, but her body trembled. It wasn't a compliment. It was an invasion. It was proof that he could come in, go out, get close, gauge distance, and that the hospital doors, which had always seemed secure, were just glass. Mark turned off the radio and looked at her. "Did you see that?" "I just received a message," Maya said, showing the screen. Mark cursed, louder, "Okay. This has become a serious matter. I'm going to request a permanent police presence on the night shift for a few days." "They will return," Maya replied, more with certainty than fear. Mark stared at her. "Do you know this type of person?" Maya hesitated. "I know." She returned to her department with a heavy heart. Her shift still had 6 hours left, and for the first time in a long time, she felt small in her own workplace. At 3:20, when the hallway was quieter, she went to the supply cabinet and rested her forehead against the metal door for a second, breathing. She opened her cell phone, went to the buried contact, the one she didn't want to use DH. This time, she didn't stare. She pressed call. The bell rang once, twice, 3 times, and then a male voice answered, low, as if the person had been awake for a long time. "Maya," the voice said, without asking who it was. The world seemed to stop for a moment. "I need help," she replied simply, and tasted the bitter taste of admitting it. There was a short silence on the other end, not out of surprise, out of calculation. "Are you safe now?" he asked. "For now." but they've been admitted to the hospital. Send me your location. And don't go home when you leave." Maya closed her eyes. The past had answered. The rest of the shift was a blur of automatic tasks and divided attention. Maya administered medication, checked vital signs, filled out forms, but inside she was somewhere else, on the phone, on the voice that recognized her name without hesitation, on the phrase "don't go home." At 7 in the morning, when day finally broke, Tyler accompanied her to the car in the covered parking lot. The hospital seemed calmer in the sunlight, as if the early morning hours had been just a collective nightmare. But Maya knew that the sun doesn't ward off threats. It only changes their color. She followed the plan the man from the past had laid out, because he hadn't suggested it. He had ordered it with the calmness of someone who had seen too many bad endings. Instead of going to the apartment, she drove to a busy place, a large cafe near the highway, where truckers came and went and cameras were visible. She stopped, sat at a table near the window, and waited. The clock struck 8:11 when an unassuming car pulled up outside. It wasn't a van, not a flashy SUV. It was something that could easily go unnoticed. A man got out, and Maya recognized his posture before she recognized his face. Relaxed shoulders, head held high, unapologetic steps. He entered the cafe as if entering neutral territory. He didn't search for her desperately. He searched methodically. When his eyes met hers, he didn't smile. He simply nodded. He was in his early 40s, with short hair streaked with gray, and a face marked by sun and fatigue. He wasn't the movie hero type. He was the survivor type. He wore jeans, a simple jacket, and seemed invisible, which was a rare ability. Maya stood up. Her heart beat differently, a mixture of relief and shame. "It's been a while," he said, his voice low enough not to attract attention. "Are you hurt?" "No." He pulled up a chair and sat with his back to the wall, taking in the entire room. Maya sat facing him, but realized that his angle included the door, windows, and even reflections. His body moved effortlessly. "Who are you to them?" he asked bluntly. Maya clutched her hands in her lap. "I don't know. I thought it was random, but they have my number. They came into the hospital. It seems like they chose me." He remained silent for a few seconds, analyzing. "Tell me from the beginning, without embellishing, without blaming yourself." Maya recounted. The parking lot, the foreshadows, the knife, the van, the chase, the police station, the messages, the lobby. She spoke quickly at first, then more slowly when she reached the part where she realized it wasn't just fear, it was an invasion. At times, her voice faltered. She hated that, but he didn't react as someone who sees weakness. He reacted as someone who sees dice. When she finished, he picked up his cell phone and asked to see the screenshots. He read everything without changing his expression. "They want to control you," he said, "and punish you for escaping. Are they going to stop?" Maya asked, and felt the ridiculousness of that hope. "People like that only stop when the cost gets too high," he replied, "or when they find another, easier victim. But you're not going to become a statistic." Maya swallowed hard. "I don't want violence." He stared at her with a firm but non-threatening look. "Neither do I. My goal isn't to hurt anyone. It's to keep you alive. And alive includes you continuing to be a nurse, if that's what you want. But now, you're going to have to act like someone who's being hunted." Maya felt her irritation rising. "I don't want to live paranoid." "Then don't just live," he said bluntly. "Live prepared. It's different." She lowered her eyes. Being prepared was a price she thought she had paid in the past and had finished paying when she changed her name and city. "Do they know where I live?" she asked. "Maybe. Maybe not. But they know where you work, and that's already bad. You're going to change your routine today." He pulled a small, old-fashioned notebook from his pocket and began to write. "First, you will no longer leave the hospital through the open parking lot. Second, you will no longer answer calls from unknown numbers. Third, you will document everything: time, location, license plate, description. This helps the police and helps you avoid getting lost in your own head." Maya sighed. "The police are doing what they can." "I know," he replied. "But police work with evidence. Predators work with time. We're going to reduce their time and increase the amount of evidence." She looked at him more closely. "Where are you living?" "I'm not," he said. "I'm just passing through. But I might stay a few days. The phrase carried something Maya didn't want to name. He wasn't just offering guidance, he was offering presence. And presence, for someone under threat, is almost as valuable as any weapon. "How did you find me? How are you here so fast?" she asked. He paused briefly. "I'm not going to give you details, but I keep in touch, and I wouldn't ignore a call from you." Maya felt a tightness in her throat. Gratitude came mixed with anger at the world for needing this. "Do you think this has anything to do with my past?" she asked. He tilted his head. "It has to do with two things. Either someone recognized you from before, or someone shows you now for another reason and is using your past as a weakness. I need more information, not about operations, about people, someone who would hate you." Maya thought about her years as an interpreter, the sideways glances, people who disappeared and returned changed, arguments that never ended well. There were many candidates, and that was frightening. "I don't know," she said. "I tried to erase everything. Deleting it doesn't work. It only postpones it." He stood up. "I want to see the area around the hospital. Today, right now, during the day. We'll walk by like two civilians going to get coffee, but I want to look at entrances, cameras, blind spots. Will you come with me?" Maya asked, and realized how much the question tasted like childhood. "Yes," he replied. "And you're going to do something difficult. You're going to accept help." Without feeling guilty for needing it, they left the cafe and got into his car. Maya noticed the details. No trinkets, no loose objects, nothing that would betray his habit. He drove smoothly, but attentively. When they got close to the hospital, he didn't go straight in. He circled the block, observing. "Over there," he said, pointing with his chin. "That corner is good for waiting unseen. And over there, behind the gas station, you can park a van without drawing attention." They've done it before. Maya felt a tingle run down her spine. "How do you know?" "Because it's obvious," he said. "And predators like the obvious when the obvious yields results." They stopped on a side street and stood there for a few minutes watching. They didn't see the van, but they saw something more frightening. A man standing near the side entrance, pretending to use his cell phone, repeatedly glancing at the flow of employees. It wasn't the one with the cap. It was another man. And yet, he had the same way of waiting. "Can you see this?" Maya whispered. "Yes," he replied. "And he's working. This isn't childishness. This is routine." Maya felt the weight of the word routine. She was a prisoner of their routine. "What's the next step?" she asked. "I'm going to talk to Detective Hayes," he said. "If he's any good, he'll understand that this is group policy. And you're going to do one thing now. You're not going back to your apartment today. You're going to a neutral location. A simple hotel, paid for in cash, near highways and with cameras, without informing anyone except me and the police." Maya opened her mouth to protest, but he raised his hand, not aggressively, just decisively. "I know you want normalcy, but normalcy died in the parking lot. We're building a new, safer one." She looked out the window, seeing the hospital in the distance, and felt something she had never felt so clearly before. Her life had turned into a chessboard, and someone was moving the pieces. The chapter ends here. Chapter 7, Traces in the daylight. The hotel was simple, near a highway exit, with well-lit parking and visible cameras at the entrance. Nothing luxurious, nothing romantic, just functional, like a temporary room. Maya paid in cash, signed with a slightly trembling hand, and went upstairs with her small backpack. The man from the past stayed in the car, observing his surroundings, as if the world were an equation. In the room, Maya felt a different kind of fear, the fear of silence. In the hospital, there was always sound, people, emergencies. In the room, there was only the hum of the air conditioner and the distant noise of cars. The silence gave space for the messages in her head. She took her cell phone out of her bag and saw missed calls from an unknown number. 3. Then, a message. "Did you disappear? Are you running away?" She didn't answer. She turned off the device and put it away again. Part of her wanted to throw the phone out the window. Part of her knew the phone was evidence. Later, he knocked on the door and entered silently. Maya realized that he had the kind of presence that doesn't need to make a sound to exist. "I spoke with Hayes," he said. Maya got out of bed and, "He's taking it seriously," the man replied. "But he's limited. He needs a license plate. He needs identification. He asked you to go to the police station again tomorrow. I said you'll go, but with an escort and no fixed schedule, Maya sighed. So no arrests today? Not yet. He placed two things on the table, a printed map and a notepad. We're going to reconstruct their pattern. Where the approach was, where the van appeared, where you parked, where you entered the hospital. This isn't about you becoming an investigator. It's about you regaining mental control. When you understand the map, you stop thinking the world is an invisible monster. Maya looked at the map, and part of her bristled at the idea of having to study her own pursuit. But as she began to mark the points, she realized there was something almost therapeutic about transforming fear into lines and distances. The open parking lot, the original route, the gas station in Farmington, the cafe, the hotel. They knew their schedule, he said. This could be simple observation, because shifts have a standard schedule, but it could also be information from inside. Someone who works at the hospital and commented, or who saw the schedules. Maya felt a chill. Do you think there's anyone in there? I don't know, but I've learned not to rule it out. She remained quiet. She thought about well-meaning colleagues who talk too much, about outsourced workers who walk around without name tags, about people who approach you as if they're friendly but, behind your back, are just gathering details. The guy with the cap walked into the lobby like nothing was happening, Maya said. Like he knew nothing was going to happen, because he wanted you to know that he can do it. The man replied, it's psychological power. He wants you to live with the feeling that any door opens for him. Maya bit the tip of her thumb, an old habit. And how do I close this door? At a cost, he said. Legal cost, social cost, risk cost. He only stays in power because he thinks the city won't react quickly. We're going to make the city react. Maya stared at him. What? He pointed to her cell phone. The next time they text you, you don't reply, but you record it. And I'll put you in a place where they feel comfortable showing up, but where the police are ready. It's not a movie trap. It's just about reducing variables. This is dangerous, Maya whispered. Yes, he replied, without romanticizing it. But standing still is even more dangerous. They worked for 2 hours. He asked for details about the night in the parking lot, the position of the bodies, the exact words spoken, who had the knife, who stayed at a distance. When Maya mentioned the fifth man who appeared on camera, he became more serious. That's the brain, he said. How can you be so sure? Because he doesn't need to touch. He needs to ensure that the rest touch. He observes the reaction, measures the risk. This type doesn't seek adrenaline. He seeks results. Maya felt a lump in her throat. And the result? What was it? He didn't answer immediately, and his silence spoke for itself. Late in the afternoon, Maya received a call on the hotel's number. The reception informed her that a woman wanted to speak with her. Maya froze. Who? She asked. The person said that she is your mother. Maya felt her body freeze. She hadn't told her mother where she was, and her mother wouldn't have called the hotel if she wasn't desperate. I'm going downstairs, Maya said, already getting up. The man from the past held her arm firmly, not aggressively, just interrupting. Calm down. We'll confirm first. He went downstairs alone, cell phone in hand. Maya stood in the doorway of the room, listening for anything in the hallway. Her heart was pounding, and she realized how easy it was to be swept away by emotion when danger disguises itself as family. 10 minutes later, he returned. His face was stiff. She wasn't his mother. Maya felt the ground seem unstable. What? What was it then? It was a message, he said. A man showed up at reception and said a woman had called asking to speak to you. There was no call. It was just a way to get you to come down. Maya put her hand to her mouth. Are they here? I didn't see anyone outside, but that doesn't mean anything, he replied. They're testing to see if you still react like before. Maya sat on the bed, trembling. I almost went. And you learned, he said. That's their game, to lure you into places where there are no cameras, where there are no witnesses, where the city isn't watching. She took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. How did they find the hotel? He stared at her for a few seconds. Either they followed you, or they got information from someone, or they were shooting in the dark and got lucky. Maya felt her fear turn to anger. I didn't tell anyone. You don't need to tell anyone, he said. Sometimes all it takes is for someone to see you walk into a place and remember you. Sometimes all it takes is your license plate, a face, a habit. Maya got up and went to the window, pulling the curtain back a millimeter. The hotel parking lot was lit. Ordinary cars, ordinary people. And yet, she now saw the world as a field. "I can't take this anymore," she said, almost voicelessly. He stayed by her side, but didn't touch her. "You can handle it. You've been handling it since that night. But now you're going to handle it the right way, without isolating yourself, without pretending it doesn't exist." Her phone vibrated, even though it was disconnected from Wi-Fi. Because the network was still active, Maya turned on the screen and saw a new message from a different number. It almost went down. "You're still predictable." Her stomach churned. And at the same time, a small detail made her mind light up. The phrase "almost went down" meant that someone was close enough to see movement, or someone had someone inside. She showed him the message. He read it and nodded, as if confirming a hypothesis. "We're changing hotels today," he said. "And tomorrow, you're going with Hayes. We're going to deliver this the way the law dictates. And then we'll see who's pulling the strings." Maya looked at her reflection in the window. The woman there seemed normal, hair tied back, tired face, uniform folded on the chair. But her eyes were changing. Not to become eyes of vengeance, to become the eyes of someone who refuses to be moved like a pawn. The following morning, Maya entered the police station with a strange feeling, as if she were returning to a place she should never have gone. She was accompanied by the man from her past, but he didn't walk her all the way to the counter. He stayed a few steps behind, invisible to most, visible to those who mattered. A guard glanced at him and looked away, as if he had a feeling that this man was not just another one. Detective Hayes appeared quickly, with a cup of coffee and the same tired look on his face. When he saw Maya, his expression softened slightly, but it quickly turned serious when he realized she wasn't alone. "Miss Carter," Hayes said. "Who is a friend?" Maya replied, before the man could speak. Hayes assessed the man for a second. "Okay, let's go to the living room." The room was the same as before, small, cold, dimly lit. Hayes closed the door and pointed to the chairs. Maya sat down. The man from the past stood in the corner, near the wall, as if to show that he wasn't there to give orders, but also wasn't there to be ignored. Hayes opened a folder. "I received your screenshots, and I received a report from hospital security about the man in the lobby. He was there," Maya said, and he looked at the camera. "In the same minute, I received a message." Hayes nodded, pulling out his keyboard. "That can be used to show intent and pursuit, and the attempt to get you to come down to the hotel. That's also relevant." Maya noticed the word attempt and felt a wave of frustration rising within her. "Relevance doesn't arrest anyone," she said, not wanting to sound rude, but sounding rude nonetheless. Hayes took a breath and crossed his hands. "I understand, but I can't arrest someone just because they were a jerk and sent a message. I need to connect the person to the act of the crime. What I can do now is request a restraining order, initiate a formal investigation for stalking and threats, and try to identify the group by image and pattern." The man from the past spoke for the first time, his voice calm. "And the fifth man? The observer with the camera. Do you have a better image of him?" Hayes turned his face away, surprised that he was speaking. "Who are you anyway?" "Someone who doesn't want her to die," he replied simply. Hayes was silent for a second, then opened another file. On the screen, a zoom of the parking lot video. The fifth man was far away, but you could see the shape of his body, the way he stood still. Hayes zoomed in further, and the image became even grainier. "You can't see faces," Hayes said, "but you can see posture and clothing. This can be cross-referenced with other cameras in the surrounding area." The man replied. "Hospital exits, nearby streets, gas station. If he was there, he came from somewhere and went somewhere else." Hayes sighed. "I requested those images, but they take a long time. Each private camera is a request. Each request is a deadline. Each deadline is a loophole." Maya felt the urge to scream. Instead, she breathed. "They know my number," she said. "That's what scares me." "How did they get it?" Hayes grimaced. "There are several ways. Leak, data broker, old file, someone from the hospital, someone who knows you. You changed your name for security reasons. That doesn't erase the world's trail. It just makes it harder. Maya clenched her hands. Then I'll never be safe. You will, the man from the past said firmly. Just not the easy way. Hayes looked at him, then at Maya. Do you trust him? Maya felt the question hit a sensitive spot. Trust was precious to her, and yet she answered honestly. I trust enough not to be alone. Hayes nodded, as if accepting the answer like an adult. Okay. I'll do the following. I'll ask a unit to be stationed near the hospital during shift changes for a few days. I'll formally file a stalking and threat case. And I'll try to identify this guy in the cap. If I get his name, I can get a warrant. Maya swallowed hard. And until then? Hayes took a sheet of paper and placed it on the table. Until then, you follow a protocol. You're already part of it. Change of routine, escort, documentation. And there's more. I want you to consider changing your number and leaving your current one only for evidence collection. A secondary device, without your contacts. The other one stays in airplane mode most of the time, only making calls to receive messages and record. The man from the past nodded in approval. Good. Maya looked at Hayes. What if they decide to capture me before all this happens? Hayes turned serious. Then you call 911 and try to stay in a well-lit, public place. And he hesitated, as if he knew that would sound insufficient. And you do everything you can to avoid being isolated. Maya tasted the bitter truth. The law protects after the fact. Sometimes, a person needs to protect themselves beforehand. The man from the past leaned in slightly. Hayes, do you have other similar cases? Women approached near hospitals. Hayes pulled out a folder and opened it. I have for ongoing cases and one archived due to lack of testimony. Most are standard. Approach, threat, attempt to take someone to a car. In 2 cases, robbery. In 1, physical assault. In 1, disappearance for hours. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. And you think it's the same group? I can't say for sure, Hayes said. But the pattern matches. And if it matches, it means you're not being targeted by chance. You're being targeted for convenience. Convenient. The word hurt. Maya took a deep breath and pulled something out of her pocket that she had hesitated to bring. A piece of paper with old names, old contacts, old places. She placed it slowly on the table. I didn't want to bring this up, she said. But if there's a chance it's connected to my past, these are some names of people who knew where I was years ago. Hayes picked up the paper carefully, as if it were fragile. He read it and nodded. That helps a lot, he said. Even if it's not a direct link, it opens up avenues. And I'll say something you might not like. Someone might be using your story to blackmail you, scare you, or just punish you. But whoever went into the hospital, that guy with the cap, he likes an audience. That's typical of someone who wants to be seen. Then he'll be back, Maya said. Hayes didn't deny it. There's a good chance. The man from the past spoke again, calmly. If he likes being seen, he'll try to show up when he thinks she's alone. Let's make him miscalculate. Hayes stared at him. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting doing what you already do, just with less luck involved, he replied. You know the schedules, you know the routes. She doesn't need to be bait. She just needs to be accompanied invisibly. Hayes remained silent, and Maya noticed a detail, for the first time. A plan was beginning to take shape that wasn't just change your life and wait. It was about reaction. Hayes closed the folder. I'll talk to my superior. I'm not promising anything, but I can set up surveillance near the hospital, in partnership with security. If this guy shows up, we'll try to follow him without him noticing. Maya felt a glimmer of hope, small and dangerous. As they left the police station, she and the man from her past walked to the car in silence. In the parking lot, a group of people smoked near the entrance. Someone laughed. The world went on. In the car, Maya finally asked what he'd been holding back since the coffee shop. Why do you still answer my calls? She said. After everything. After I disappeared. He took a while to answer. Because I promised that if you ever needed me, you wouldn't be alone. Maya felt a tightness in her throat. I didn't ask you to promise. I know, he said. I promised anyway. She looked out the window. A car drove slowly past, and she found herself analyzing the driver. Fear had become a habit, and that was sad. But habit could also become protection. The secondary cell phone, the one that would now be just for proof, vibrated with an unknown number. Maya looked at it and felt her stomach clench. Message, police station. Nice trip. Do you think they're going to save you? Maya showed him the screen. He read it, and for the first time an emotion appeared on his face. Not explosive anger, but a cold, concentrated irritation. They've got their eye on you, he said. And now we're sure of one thing, which, it's not just stalking, it's a challenge. They're testing how much you trust the system. To break that trust, Maya swallowed hard. What if I lose trust? He started the car and drove off slowly, as if not running out of fear. You won't lose. You'll just learn to trust the right way, with a plan, with proof, with the right people, and with yourself. Maya closed her hand around her cell phone. This time, the shaking was less intense. She didn't know how it would end, but she knew one thing clearly. They wanted her to live shrunken, and she was starting to refuse. The plan wasn't to catch them. Maya repeated this to herself like a mantra, because the idea of catching seemed too grand, almost Hollywood-esque. The plan was smaller, tougher, and more real, reduced the room for improvisation, decreased the chances of an encounter without witnesses, increased the evidence, increased the cost. Still, when the night of her next shift arrived, her stomach felt like it was full of stones. She parked in the covered area, as agreed, and Tyler appeared with another security guard, Jeff, older and with the face of someone who had seen a bar fight and had no patience for drama. Maya entered the hospital through a side door, avoiding the lobby. It was the kind of change that seemed excessive until you remembered the message, "Nice ride." She was no longer living a shift. She was living a scheduled shift. The man from the past didn't go in with her. He never let himself be seen where he could become an easy target. He preferred to be the detail that the threat didn't notice. Hayes had said, with his typical caution, that maybe he could get a team to keep watch. Maybe. But that night, Mark assured him that there was at least one patrol car making rounds. It wasn't much, but it was something. Maya tried to focus on the patients. She tried to cling to what she knew how to do: take blood pressure, administer medication, hold someone's hand on the worst day of their life. But between one task and another, she felt the eyes on her. Not real eyes, the ghost of eyes. At 12:40 a.m., a new nurse, Emily, came to her with a clipboard. "Maya, there's a man at the side entrance asking about you," Emily said innocently. "He said he's your cousin." The word cousin made Maya swallow hard. Predators love social roles. Cousin, boyfriend, husband, brother. It's the perfect outfit to get into any place. "Did you speak to security?" Maya asked. "No. I came to warn you first." Maya gripped the clipboard and breathed. In the past, she would have gone to the door to sort things out. Now, she knew, every time you show up, you give them what they want. "Don't open it," Maya said. "And call security now." Emily's eyes widened. "Okay." Maya went to Mark in the monitor room. Tyler was already there. The monitor showed the side door, a man standing there, hands in his pockets, looking at his cell phone. It wasn't the one with the cap. It was another one, shorter, gray hoodie. But there was something about his manner, the way he waited, as if he were certain of his right to be there. "He's trying to come in from the side," Mark said, annoyed. "He won't get away with it." Tyler picked up the radio. "Jeff, go to the side door." "I'll follow." Maya grabbed Tyler's arm. "It's not just you to go in." Tyler hesitated. "Mark already called the police." "Then wait for the police," Maya insisted. Mark looked at her and, for the first time, seemed to understand that the risk wasn't a fight. It was the possibility of a distraction, a maneuver to pull someone out and let another in. "She's right," Mark said. "Hold on. No one's going to open any doors." On the monitor, the hooded man looked up as if he'd heard something. Then he smiled, a small, irritating smile, and walked away from the door. But he didn't leave. He walked down the outside corridor, out of the camera's range, as if he wanted to be followed. "He wants us to go after him," Tyler said. Mark responded with a curt no. Maya observed and felt something strange. It wasn't just fear. It was recognition. This was a group tactic. One pulls, another takes advantage. One calls attention, another enters. And if there was strategy, there was brains. Her secondary cell phone vibrated in her uniform pocket. She already knew she shouldn't look, but she did. "Message, you're learning, but you still breathe wrong when you're scared." Maya felt her face heat up. The comment wasn't about actual breathing. It was about intimacy, about being close enough to observe her body, her timing, her mannerisms. It was an attempt to invade her inner self. She showed the message to Mark. Mark gritted his teeth. "Is this from the guy with the cap?" he asked. "I don't know, but it's theirs." Mark picked up the phone and called Hayes. This time, Hayes answered. "The suspect is loitering around the side door of the hospital right now," Mark said bluntly. And the nurse received a message at the same minute. Hayes asked for a description. Mark passed by. Hayes said a unit was on its way. And for a few minutes, everything stood still. Security guards in position, doors locked, employees warned not to go out alone. It was during this tense moment that Maya noticed something else on the monitor. An ordinary white sedan had parked in a distant spot in the open area. The driver didn't get out. The car just sat there running. And when the camera zoomed in, Maya saw someone in the passenger seat wearing a cap. She felt her throat close up. "Mark," she said, pointing to the screen. Mark zoomed in. The image wasn't sharp, but the gesture was clear. The man in the cap fiddled with his phone and turned his face toward the building, as if he were looking at the windows. "He's here," Maya whispered. The police car arrived 5 minutes later, pulling into the parking lot calmly. No siren, no lights, just presence. 2 officers got out and began talking to Mark at the entrance. Meanwhile, the white sedan moved slowly and drove away. "They're leaving," Tyler said. "They want us to get used to it," Maya replied. Her own voice sounded strange, as if it were no longer the voice of someone who only reacts. The police made a quick patrol, spoke with security, and filed a report. The hooded man was not found. The white sedan disappeared. And as always, the emptiness looked like impunity. When her shift ended at 7, Maya wasn't just escorted to her car. She was escorted all the way out of the block. The man from her past was at a prearranged spot in another vehicle, watching from a distance. He didn't approach. He only sent a short message to her new cell phone, the one she used for secure contact. "They're getting too confident. Confidence breeds error." Maya drove to a second hotel. She went in through a side door, chose a room on the second floor, and asked to change rooms if anyone asked for Maya. It was humiliating, but it was real. Lying in bed, she tried to sleep. She couldn't. Her mind kept replaying the image of the white sedan. The cap, the way he looked, as if he were measuring something, as if he were waiting for the perfect opportunity. At 2:13 a.m., the exam cell phone vibrated again. Message: "We saw your friend. He thinks he's invisible." Maya sat up in bed, her heart racing, because that phrase meant they had noticed the man from the past. And if they had noticed him, they could decide to change their target. Maya was no longer the only one at risk. The next morning, Maya found the man from her past in a supermarket parking lot, a place ordinary enough that no one would pay attention and busy enough that no one would dare to do anything significant. He was leaning against his car, drinking coffee from a paper cup, like a normal man waiting for someone to buy bread. But his eyes wouldn't stop. They scanned. Maya showed the message, "We saw your friend." He carefully read and stored her cell phone, as if it were fragile evidence. "They're trying to separate you from me," he said. "Or scare you away," Maya replied. "I'm not leaving," he said simply, and Maya felt a relief that came with guilt. Guilt for needing him. Guilt for bringing trouble. They walked to a less crowded corner of the parking lot and sat inside her car, without starting the engine. He asked to see the message history and timestamps. Maya handed everything over. He pointed out a detail she hadn't noticed. The messages had a rhythm. They were scheduled close to shift changes, commutes, arrival times, as if someone knew, as if someone had access to a schedule. "This isn't just observing from afar," he said. "This is information." Maya felt her stomach sink. "From the hospital, or someone close to them," he replied. "But the hospital is the most likely." She thought of Emily. Of Tasha, of people who spoke without thinking, of outsourced workers, of someone at reception who, even without bad intentions, might have said she's here today, or someone who did more than just talk. "And if there's someone on the inside," Maya whispered, "how do I find out?" He took a deep breath, as if choosing his words carefully. "You don't figure it out on your own. You don't become a detective of your own life. We create tests. Test, yes. Controlled information. You say something to a small group and observe who reacts. If the message gets outside, you know it leaked. If it doesn't, you narrow it down. Maya felt a moral unease. This feels like manipulation. It's protection, he replied. You're not making up a crime. You're tracking a leak. She remained silent, accepting it. Late in the afternoon, they met with Hayes in a private room at the hospital, at Mark's request. Hayes arrived without his uniform, in casual clothes, so as not to draw attention. He brought a briefcase and looked more tired than the day before. I got more images, Hayes said, opening his laptop. From the gas station in Farmington and from a city camera near the hospital. It's not perfect, but you can see the white sedan. He pressed play. The video showed the sedan getting in and out, and in one frame, you could see part of the license plate. Not the whole thing, but a piece of it. That's enough to narrow the search, Hayes said. And I have something else. The man in the cap appears on a store camera days earlier. Near the hospital, as if he were scouting the area. Maya felt her chest tighten. So they were preparing. Yes, Hayes replied. And this is no longer just harassment. This is pattern stalking. The man from the past tilted his head. And the fifth man? Hayes shook his head. We still don't have a face. But I have a detail. In one camera shot, he gets into a car and you can see a tattoo on his wrist. Small, a symbol. Maya closed her eyes. She remembered the taller man in the parking lot with a similar tattoo on his neck. The symbol, repeated in different places, was like a signature. They are a group, Maya said, more to herself. Hayes nodded. And groups leave a trail. But groups also have an advantage. They cover for each other. The man from the past pointed to the laptop. If they have inside information, you need to look at who has access to the schedule. Reception, HR, supervision. And you need to look at who had contact with her number. Because numbers don't just fall from the sky. Hayes noted, I'm going to request an access analysis of the scheduling system, but that involves hospital administration. And hospitals hate scandal. Mark, who was in the room, replied immediately, I'd rather see a scandal than see a corpse. That sentence made Maya shudder, not out of drama, but out of truth. They set up the information test. Maya, under Hayes' guidance, would tell only 3 people that she had changed shifts for a few days, and that she would enter through the door of Sector X. It was a lie. She wouldn't change shifts, and she wouldn't enter through that door. It was bait, but information bait. The 3 people would be chosen based on their roles: a nursing supervisor, a night shift receptionist, and a contractor who circulated frequently. Maya hated the idea of distrusting ordinary people, but she hated even more the idea of being hunted by someone pretending to be ordinary. On the night of the test, Maya arrived at the hospital early, by a completely different route, and entered through a door that almost no one used. Tyler was there. Mark was watching. Hayes had a team in an unmarked car across the street. The man from the past would stay at a distance, keeping an eye on things. The hospital seemed normal, which made everything worse. At 1:37, the exam cell phone vibrated. Message, Door X, nice try. Maya felt her hands grow cold. Door X was the lie, and the message had come less than 3 hours after she spread the lie. Hayes received the screenshot immediately. His face hardened. Then it leaked, he said. And it leaked fast. Mark pressed the radio. Who even knew about Door X? Maya swallowed. 3 people, 3 possibilities, and one of them now had much more than just an opinion about her. She had access to routines, schedules, and perhaps even restricted areas. Hayes looked at Maya. Do you understand what this means? Maya felt her stomach churn. It means I'm not just dealing with people from the parking lot. Exactly, Hayes said. You're dealing with someone who opens doors. At that moment, a call came through the security radio. An alarm had gone off in the medication room of Sector B. An alarm that only goes off when the door is opened improperly. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. Because the medication room was where they kept the things that many people used to sleep, to pass out, to not remember. And someone had just tried to enter. The race down the corridor wasn't heroic. It was ugly, hurried, people dodging stretchers, doctors looking on in disbelief. Mark and Tyler went ahead. Hayes followed closely behind, his hand near his waist, where there was no visible weapon, but there was determination. Maya went along because the medication room was part of her world, and because, deep down, she knew if that alarm was real, their goal was never just to scare people. When they arrived, the door to the room was ajar, and the sensor was flashing red. Tyler pushed it open and went in first, glancing around the corners as if expecting someone to jump out. There was no one there, just the sterile smell and the shelves. Mark went straight to the panel and checked the electronic log. "Badge access," he said, his voice tense. "No forced entry." Hayes approached. "Which badge?" Mark typed and frowned. "Reception badge." Maya felt her stomach sink. The receptionist was one of the three who had received the lie from door X. And reception was exactly the kind of place where you see routine, where you answer calls, where you register visitors. Hayes asked to see the hallway cameras. Mark pulled out his tablet and pressed play. The recording showed a hooded figure walking quickly, head down. He stopped at the door, showed a badge, went inside. Then he left in less than a minute. He didn't have time to catch anything big, Mark said. Maya approached the shelves and looked at the stock. It wasn't easy to spot anything missing, but there was an open box of emergency sedatives, and a bottle that should have been sealed looked like it had been tampered with. She felt her throat close up. "They wanted drugs," she said, and the words sounded dirty. Hayes nodded. "Or they wanted the chance to drug you." The silence that followed was heavy. Maya thought about the message, "Don't change the route." She thought about the attempt to get her to get off at the hotel. She thought about the initial approach. They weren't just playing around. They were setting up a situation where she would have no voice, no reaction. She felt a real, physical nausea. It wasn't drama. It was her body understanding her intention too late. Hayes asked Mark to lock the room and call the central pharmacy for an urgent count. He also requested the access log from the reception badge. And then came the detail that tilted everything. The name tag used did not belong to the receptionist who was working that night. It belonged to a receptionist who was off duty. Maya felt a chill down the back of her neck. "Did they steal my badge?" "Either they cloned it," Hayes said, "or they borrowed it," Mark cursed. "I'm going to call that person right now." Hayes raised his hand. "No, we don't warn suspects. We observe them." Maya looked at Hayes with a mixture of anger and fear. "And while you watch, they go into a medication room." Hayes stared at Maya firmly. "I understand your frustration, but if I warn you, I lose the chance to arrest you. And if I only arrest the guy in the hoodie, I lose my mind." The man from the past appeared in the hallway at that moment, as if he had sprouted from the wall. Not because he was magical, but because he moved without drawing attention. He only heard the end and spoke softly, directly to Maya. "That confirms it. They want chemical control." Maya closed her eyes for a second, and an old anger rose up. She remembered stories of women waking up with broken memories and planted guilt. She remembered the world always asking, "Why were you there? Why did you drink? Why did you trust?" Now, they wanted to manufacture the question. She opened her eyes and stared at Hayes. "I'm not going to be an experiment." Hayes nodded. "Then you're going to help us wrap this up, but the right way, without making headlines for overreacting." Mark called everyone into the security room. There, Hayes set up a timeline on the whiteboard: approach, van, messages, presence in the lobby, attempt at the hotel, white sedan, breach of door X, invasion of the medication room. "They are climbing," Hayes said, "and climbing requires interruption." Today, Hayes' plan was simple and risky: set up surveillance in the hospital, focusing on those with access to information and badges. The idea wasn't to expose Maya, but rather to use the fact that they were already confident to catch her next move. Maya agreed, but she set one condition: "I'm not going to be alone in any hallway." Mark guaranteed an escort. Tyler guaranteed it. The man from the past guaranteed it with his silence, which was firmer than a promise. At 4 in the morning, the hospital was at its most vulnerable. Few people, extreme fatigue, doors opening and closing for garbage, maintenance, restocking. At that hour, everything seems routine, and that's why it's easy to hide. On the reception camera, Hayes saw something that made his body stiffen. A man entered as a visitor, wearing a cap. The cap. He chatted with the receptionist on duty, laughed, and then placed a piece of paper on the counter, as if it were a form. The receptionist looked at it, typed something, and gestured towards a hallway. Maya, watching on the monitor, felt her stomach churn. She just gave him some guidance, Maya said in a low voice. Hayes picked up the radio. Team A, move to the east corridor. Don't intercept yet. Just follow. The man in the cap walked calmly down the hallway, as if he knew the building was his. He stopped near a restricted access door. He waited. A minute later, the door opened from the inside, and the man in the hood came out. They exchanged a few words. The cap man handed something small to the hooded man. The hooded man put it in his pocket. Maya couldn't see the object, but the gesture was clear. Exchange. Hayes spoke with composure. Now, two plainclothes police officers appeared quickly. Tyler and Jeff came from the other side. The hooded man tried to run, but Tyler was already close. The cap tried to blend in, as if he were a confused visitor. But Hayes emerged from the security room and appeared in the hallway with his badge in hand. Stop, Hayes ordered. The man in the cap smiled, as always. What is it, detective? I'm just waiting for someone. Hayes didn't argue. He ordered the hooded man to be handcuffed first, because the hooded man had come out of a restricted door. The hooded man tried to resist, and in the resistance, something fell from his pocket and hit the floor. A small, transparent vial with a hospital label. Sedative. Maya brought her hand to her mouth. The proof was there, shining in the hallway light like a slap in the face. The cap lost its smile for half a second. Only for half a second. But it was enough for Maya to realize the cap wasn't just a bully. It was a tool. The brain wasn't there yet. Hayes looked at the bottle and then at the cap. Now you're in trouble. The cap tilted its head, regaining its smile. I have a lawyer. And I have video, Hayes replied. And I have intrusion. The cap looked at the camera on the ceiling. For the first time, it seemed annoyed at being watched. Watched by someone other than itself. Maya, at the end of the corridor, felt something dangerous, satisfaction. And along with it, fear. Because satisfaction in cases like this is an invitation for the universe to remind you that it's not over yet. The hooded man was taken away. The cap too. But the cap walked away as if it had already planned this moment, as if it already had an escape route. As he passed Maya, handcuffed, he leaned forward slightly, as if he could speak without the others hearing. You think you won because you rested two people, he whispered, with a slight smile. You haven't seen who's in charge yet. Maya didn't answer, but her heart ached, because, in that sentence, there was a certainty that didn't fit with someone being taken away by the police. And because, on the other side of the hallway, the receptionist who had pointed the way was crying, saying that she was just helping a visitor. Maya looked at her and understood. They didn't need someone to be an accomplice out of malice. They only needed someone to be useful out of ignorance. Dawn brought no immediate relief. It brought paperwork, interviews, the feeling that the danger had merely changed form. The hooded man was in jail, and the one with the cap too. But the phrase, you still haven't seen who's in charge, kept repeating in Maya's head, like a bad song. Hayes stayed at the hospital until early morning to tie up as many loose ends as possible. Before lawyers got involved, he spoke with Mark, collected images, requested access logs, and asked for a search warrant for the hooded man's house. All with the urgency of someone who knows that the system's time frame is slow, but the time frame of crime is fast. Maya was taken to a room with cold coffee and a hard chair to give another statement. She felt heavy. The adrenaline of the capture had worn off, and now came the cost. Trembling, nausea, headache. She was alive, but she was tired of being on alert. You did the right thing, Hayes said, sitting across from her. Maya let out a short laugh. I did what was necessary. Hayes nodded. That's right too. He placed a sheet of paper in front of her, a request for a protection order, and a formal recommendation that she receive psychological support, in addition to a security plan with the hospital. He spoke calmly, without being patronizing. You don't need to be strong all the time, he said. You just need to survive long enough to be able to live again. The phrase resonated differently, because returning to life seemed distant. When it was all over, Maya left the hospital through a side door, with Tyler and Jeff. Outside, the sun was high, and the parking lot seemed all too normal. The world, as always, goes on. On her way to the car, she saw the dark van. Not moving, not switched on, not occupied. just parked on the street across the street, like a dead animal. Her heart raced. Tyler saw it too. Is that the van? It seems so, Maya said, her mouth dry. Jeff already had the radio on. Mark, we have a suspicious van on South Street. It might be the same one. Within minutes, a police car arrived. The officers approached cautiously. One of them looked out the window and stepped back. There's someone inside, he said. Maya felt her stomach churn. Not from morbid curiosity, but from fear of what it all meant. The police officers opened the door. Inside, a man was in the driver's seat, his body limp, his eyes closed. He didn't seem injured, but he seemed unconscious. On the passenger seat, there was an old cell phone, a wallet, and a folded piece of paper. Hayes appeared, summoned urgently. He looked at the scene and frowned. Call an ambulance and isolate the area. The folded paper was unfolded with gloves. Maya saw it from afar, but read enough when Hayes turned to show her an address. An address Maya knew because it was where she had lived before her new name, before her new life, an address she thought she had erased from the world. Maya felt her body go cold. They knew, she whispered. Hayes took on the role. This seems like a message, or a clue. The man from the past, who had arrived and observed from afar, approached the group. He looked at the address and his jaw tightened. This isn't random, he said. This is someone pulling you back to the past. And now, more than ever, you won't be alone. Maya felt an urge to say I'll go, because pride still lived within her. But she learned that week that pride doesn't pay for hospital stays. I don't want to go, she said honestly. But I also don't want this to continue. Hayes took a deep breath. If this address is connected to a larger case, I can open a formal investigation. But I need a basis. I need to know what happened there. Maya closed her eyes and saw the past clearly. Cheap apartments, a hurried move, an old name on a brown envelope, the feeling of being watched even when no one was. She had left without looking back, thinking it was a victory. But the past, sometimes, refuses to be let go. I lived there when I came back from abroad, she said. It was before I changed my name. I received threats back then. I thought it had stopped. Hayes took note. Did you report it at the time? Maya shook her head, shame burning. I thought it was pointless. Hayes didn't judge. She simply nodded, as if understanding the survival mechanism of a woman trying not to draw attention to herself. So we'll start from there, Hayes said. I'll ask for permission for a team to go with you to that address. Not today, because you're exhausted and because we need a warrant depending on what it is. But we'll go. Maya felt an overwhelming urge to cry, but she didn't. Not because she was strong, but because she was empty. That late afternoon, she went to a temporary apartment provided by a colleague, a trustworthy person who lived with her brother and had space. Nothing glamorous, but it was safe. She took a shower and sat in the living room, listening to the television without paying attention. It was just to have some sound, so she wouldn't be alone with her thoughts. The man from the past sat in a chair on the other side of the room, silent. He wasn't intruding. He simply existed. After a few minutes, Maya spoke what had been bottled up for days. I hate that they made me revert to that version of myself, she said. He looked at her. They didn't do it. They tried. I didn't want to. I didn't want to live like this again. You're not going to live like before, he replied. You're not on a base or in a foreign country or surrounded by armed people. You're in your city, and you have a choice. But now your choice includes protecting yourself. Maya took a deep breath. And you? Are you going to leave when this is over? He hesitated a while. When you don't need me anymore. The answer carried a weight that she didn't want to overinterpret. She simply accepted it. The following night, Hayes called to confirm. The man in the van had a direct link to the hooded group. He wasn't the mastermind. He was a messenger. Someone who was there to deliver the message and, possibly, to be found. As if someone wanted the police to see the address. As if someone wanted to steer the case in a specific direction. Someone's constructing a narrative, Hayes said on the phone. And that usually means that someone is trying to wash their hands of it. I'm going after it. But I need you to be ready to remember things you've tried to forget. Maya hung up and stared blankly into space. On the day of the visit to her old address, a police team went with her. Hayes was there. Mark wasn't, but he texted saying take care. Tyler also texted, "I'm rooting for you." Small gestures that, for Maya, meant she wasn't invisible. The old building appeared at the end of the street, both the same and different at the same time. The rusty gate, the narrow staircase, the broken mailbox. Maya felt her body want to recoil, as if the place smelled of threat. Hayes realized, "We can stop." Maya took a breath and took a step, then another. "No. We're going." They went upstairs. The door to the old apartment was closed. The current resident had been notified and had given them permission to enter. When they opened it, the place was different. Different furniture, a different color, but the walls held memories. In the room, Hayes found something behind a false electrical outlet, a yellowish-brown envelope with Maya's old name handwritten on it. Inside were copies of documents, and most importantly, a list of numbers and names. Some were crossed out, some circled. The man from the past looked at the list and stood motionless for a second. That was rare for him. "I recognize one of those names," he said quietly. Hayes looked up. "From where?" The man hesitated, carefully considering what he could say. "People who shouldn't be mixed up with street gangs." Maya felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. So it wasn't just harassment. Hayes carefully closed the envelope. "No. This could be connected to something bigger. And if it is, it explains why someone is pulling you here." Maya took a deep breath. The city suddenly seemed both large and small at the same time. Large because it concealed networks. Small because everything seemed connected. On the way back, in the car, she looked out the window and saw people going to work, children going to school, life going on. She felt a deep sadness for having spent days living as if every corner had teeth. But she also felt something new, a decision. She was no longer going to pretend the world was fair just to avoid being scared. She looked at Hayes in the front seat. "I'll cooperate with everything. I'll remember what I need to remember. But I want one thing." Hayes turned his face away. "What?" "I don't want this to happen to another woman in my parking lot," Maya said. "I want you to use this to catch the net, not just the hat." Hayes nodded. "Seriously, me too." That night, Maya returned to the hospital, not to work, but to speak with the night shift staff. She asked for 5 minutes during the shift change and spoke, without going into intimate details, just enough to raise a warning. She talked about not walking alone, about notifying security, about not confirming names to visitors, about being suspicious of cousins, boyfriends, and friends. Her voice didn't tremble. She was tired, but she was whole. When it was over, the silence was heavy. Some people had tears in their eyes. Others were pale with fear. One technician raised her hand and asked, "What if it happens to me?" Maya took a breath and replied honestly and firmly, "So you're not alone. You don't blame yourself. And you speak up, because the only thing they want more than to scare you is to make you believe that no one will listen to you." She left the hospital under escort, but for the first time in days, the air seemed less hostile. Not because the danger was over, but because she had stopped carrying it in silence. In the car, the man from the past asked, as if confirming something, "Are you ready to see this through to the end?" Maya looked at the street, at the lights, at the world, and she answered with a clarity that surprised even herself, "I'm already moving on. Now I just won't go back."